Deciding on the dive watch for your collection is about as easy as choosing which child to sell. Why can't they just take them all? Maybe you think you'll go for the dearest, or the one with the most unique design, or the bargain of the bunch. Well, hold on there, hot stuff. If you thought it was going to be that easy, you can think again. Which is what I'm here to help you do today with a thorough roundup of the big 3 dive watch choices so you can finally be at peace. With a big thanks to Subdial, who loaned the watches in today's video from their downright delicious collector-focused pre-owned selection. There are fresh drops of new watches every week, plus competitive offers when you sell or trade. Visit subdial.com or click the link in the description to find out more, or even just to kill some time looking at very cool watches. Let's start with the big boy, everyone's favourite fictional allocation, the one that started it all, the Submariner. Say what you will about the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. It may have won the battle, but it's the Submariner that won the war, colonised the 50 Fathoms homeland, took all its priceless artefacts, and continues to culturally appropriate it to this day. The Submariner just got it right. And by right, I mean right in everyone's faces. It's the secret of commercial success. You don't necessarily have to be the best, or even good. You simply have to be the one most people are aware of. Just look at Drake. It's like a haunted house of Rolex. Wherever you turn, it's there. Rolex slapped watches on divers, pilots, explorers, athletes, scientists, fish bowls, lampposts. Anything that stood still long enough became a Rolex ambassador. And it's funny, really, because it's that no-nonsense approach to making watches that really helped the Submariner stick. Steve McQueen wore one simply because it wasn't trying to be anything except a pretty decent dive watch. And it does exactly what it says on the tin. Granted, there's quite a lot written on this particular tin these days, but it's pretty much all legit. It's an Oyster water-resistant case, sealed to 300 meters. That's 1,000 feet or 167 fathoms for countries where the metric system hasn't quite caught on yet. It has an automatic perpetual movement with 70 hours of power reserve for the latest models and 48 for those before. The ones that say date have a date, and the ones that don't. It's chronometer certified, and it's called the Submariner. Calling its own watch superlative is perhaps a little self-aggrandizing, however, like talking about yourself in the third person. Nevertheless, this plucky dive watch has come a long way since it first dipped a pinky into the cold Atlantic, initially growing crown guards, then just outright growing, and since gaining a bracelet no longer made of chewing gum wrappers and a clasp that now benefits from all 3 dimensions. To be honest, the original Submariners were built to a budget, and it showed. That budget has increased significantly since. Where you choose to jump into the Submariner's journey will determine what kind of quality you get. The latter half of the 20th century saw the introduction of some creature comforts, like a sapphire crystal, solid end links, and gold marker surrounds. But it may be the soft plastic crystal and a bracelet that sounds like Michael J. Fox in chainmail that best captures your attention. The latest addition to this model, whose evolution is paced somewhere between local government and alligator, is 2010's ceramic bezel, switching out matte black aluminium for a surface so slick it's got baby seals sweating. Non-fading and scratch-proof, it is completely resistant to developing any kind of character over time. The Submariner's appearance is virtually unchanged since day one, going through a similar fashion cycle as Homer Simpson, although that's a big part of the appeal. It's changed in degrees here and there, but ultimately what you're getting now is more or less the same as what was exiting the Rolex factory back in 1954. There are some subtle changes, however, and they can make all the difference, so we'll break it down into 3 main eras. The aluminium age, with a 40mm case and skinny lugs. This early ceramic age, with a chunkier 40mm case with sturdier, wider lugs. And the current ceramic age, with a case size nudged up to 41mm and the lugs reduced in thickness again. It's really a matter of preference, and pretty much all of them were very similar. The biggest difference is between the aluminium and the original ceramic, although we're still talking degrees of difference. If this were an eye test, you'd just be guessing which was clearer. But if you're the kind of person who knows when the thermostat's been touched, I'd recommend trying all 3 before you buy. Overall, the Submariner is smart and functional, with the ideal details improved over time to keep it on the right side of relic. It's built like an armor-piercing missile, looks fresh out of Davy Jones' locker, and wears like a silk knuckle duster. It's the benchmark against which all other dive watches are set, and with good cause. The ability for a watch to stick it long term is greatly improved by its chameleon-like way of changing up its costume, by which I mean strap, and thanks to channel partner Deluxe, I'm able to show you these watches in a number of outfits to see how different they can look. We'll start with a black cut-to-size rubber strap in 20mm, here shown in the straight-cut style of the Tropic straps of the 60s, also available with a fitted end more like Rolex's own Oysterflex. Rubber is not only a smooth, soft, lighter alternative to the steel bracelet, it's also just as at home below the waves, and will stay secured with a leaf spring deployant clasp. And although the deep is this watch's true calling, it's equally as at home at a summer barbecue where it'll look great on this gold chevre slim with its fine grain and matching stitch. It's like the watch is out of its military fatigues and dressed in something a bit more comfortable to hit the town on R&R. But if you like the look of steel, but want the feel of real nubuck, then this light grey slim will do just the job. The monochromatic colour sending the Submariner right back to when life used to be in black and white. With a soft plush surface, you'll also avoid the dreaded chill putting on a stainless steel strap on a cold winter's morning. We've been all over the show on price recently, but these days the Submariner starts at around £7,500 for the last of the aluminium jobbies, entering into the 8,000s for this first-gen ceramic. That's about the RRP of the newest ceramic Submariner, which sells used for around £10,000. The cheapest are always the dateless, and if you want to go green or much older, budget a lot more. It's not cheap, it's the most expensive of this bunch, but it carries the strongest residuals, which, from a lifetime cost point of view, could, counterintuitively, make it the most affordable dive watch here. It's not just price and availability that might make you consider an Omega Seamaster instead, however. Compared to Omega, Rolex is just a young pup, founder Hans Wilsdorf still filling his nappy on the daily, whilst Omega got to work kicking the industry into shape. You see, the Swiss watch business used to be a lot like a car boot sale. That's trunk in freedom speak, with each part for every watch made by a different person. So you'd have the wheels made by Doris, the bridges made by Edna, and the baseplate made by Agnes, and the whole ensemble would go as well together as dog shit ice cream. I'd rather see One Direction reunited than have to deal with that fine mess, because every single part had to be bodged to fit, making watches slow and expensive to make. The Americans had figured out how to industrialize the process, however, but instead of ruining it like they did with cheese and movies, they actually found a way to make watch parts that simply fit together without having to be P. Diddy'd into place with more oil than even he would know what to do with. Omega borrowed this approach and built the Labrador, a movement so called presumably because it behaved itself. And as far as Swiss watchmaking goes, Omega has always been at the forefront. It made wristwatches before Rolex did, it used 904L steel before Rolex did, and it created the Seamaster before Rolex had even started to begin thinking about planning to develop the Submariner. Granted, the Seamaster of 1948 was probably about as suitable for the sea as the Russian Navy, but by the time Rolex released the Submariner, Omega knew it had to up its game, and in a very quick and not at all slow 3 years the Seamaster had been updated to be at least more than just dustproof. That Seamaster 300, as it was known, upped water resistance to, yes, 200 meters, matched by Rolex a year later. Today, the Seamaster Professional, no longer known as the Professional and just the Diver 300, is actually capable of descending to 300 meters and gains a few additional features over the more bare-bones Submariner. On the outside is the inclusion of a helium escape valve, a function reserved for Rolex's more serious dive watch, the Sea Dweller. Although with the Seamaster, it's a manually activated device that must be screwed back down before re-entering the water. Where the Seamaster really trades its technical blows is in the caliber 8806, which splits the difference on the Submariner's power reserve with just 55 hours, but adds in its place a highly magnetic resistant silicon balance spring, and of course the work of watchmaking genius George Daniels, the coaxial escapement. If you don't know what the coaxial escapement does exactly, welcome to the club. In terms so loose they could be called a special relationship. The coaxial escapement, the escapement being the part of the watch that controls the speed it runs at, is configured in such a way to massively reduce friction and therefore increase efficiency and reduce wear. Why it only gets 55 hours of power reserve then, I don't know. The answer isn't magnets, I do know that much, I think. What's chalk and cheese when it comes to the Seamaster versus Submariner decision is how they're styled. Omega must have been late night doom scrolling Instagram from an early age, because it's always been concerned about its looks, decorating its watches with fine details and sumptuous design, where Rolex was always happy to be found in holey jeans and t-shirts. It's just now it's buying its holey jeans and t-shirts from Balenciaga. Look at the Seamaster's lugs for example. With the introduction of the professional moniker within the Omega collection, came bevels so fat they need the seatbelt extension, angled down and around the lugs in a complex shape whose only purpose is for Omega to show off. That's literally the only reason why they're like that. In fact, it took Omega so long to create a pro dive watch of its own because it thought its butt looked too big in it. And that attitude is rolled on into the dial, which is dripped out in the 1993 edition of the engraved waves. No flat nothing here for Omega. They tried it for a bit, but soon realised that's like Steve Jobs losing his signature turtleneck and putting deodorant on. Without a hidden neck and an aroma that curdles milk, he was just another man. The details keep revealing themselves the more you look. Where the Rolex design shrugs its shoulders on closer inspection, the Seamaster gets skeletonized hands, and in the case of this 60th anniversary Bond edition, a lollipop-tipped second hand as a nod back to the past. There's even a little lenticular print on the back that has James Bond doing the Charleston. Rolex would never do that. It's too fun. Rolex doesn't have fun. Something that catches people out with the Seamaster, however, is its size. At 42mm, it's a millimetre bigger than even the biggest Submariner, and a millimetre thicker as well. Must be all those magnets. So although the look might appeal, its wrist-hungry silhouette needs to be trialled first. I mean, you should try on any watch before you buy it, but I really mean it with this one, especially since Omega refuses to taper its Seamaster bracelets. The dreaded Seamaster taper situation can be remedied with a selection of other options from Deluxe. Making for a very "where'd I park my yacht" vibe is the 20mm white rubber cut to size on the leaf spring deployant clasp, complete with that oh so important taper. Nothing says "my staff have staff" quite like the white rubber. Or dial it down a touch for those evening meals out where you leave your second shirt button undone with the light grey Epsom Slim. With a stitch as natural as freeballing in linen, the Epsom Slim takes the Seamaster to a more luxurious place, where its water resistance is more likely to be put to the test by champagne rather than seawater. But you can't beat putting a blue watch on denim, and this denim Babel Slim is just the ticket for timekeeping an afternoon of eating peanuts and watching sports. If it's good enough for Patek Philippe, you're not good enough for it. I think that's the Patek Philippe slogan. Pair it with the spring deployant clasp, especially for Tang-style straps, and you've got yourself an absolute winner. A not undeniable appeal of the Seamaster Not Pro Diver 300 is its price. The quality is very well matched to the Rolex Submariner, but it starts out several thousand cheaper at an RRP of £5,300, although that price gets more or less equal by the time you factor in this Bond edition retailing at £7,900. Whichever you choose, they all seem to sell pre-owned for about £1,000 less, however, with reasonably stable residuals. So you could pay less now for the Seamaster, but potentially get less back when you come to sell. The real wildcard of this trio doesn't come from any of the also-rans like Breitling or Tag Heuer, but funnily enough from the house of Rolex itself. For as long as there's been a Rolex Submariner, there's been a Tudor version as well, built with expressly the same purpose now as it was back then, so Rolex could sell even more watches to even more people. The cool navies got the Rolexes, but that didn't mean the other navies had to miss out, and so Hans Wilsdorf collected twice. Back then, the Tudor Submariner was basically the same thing with a different movement, although as it was discontinued in the 1990s and replaced with ever more questionable designs, it drifted further away from both the Submariner and success. That is, until a plucky young creative lead brought that famous dive watch profile back in the form of the Black Bay. That man who revived Tudor would go on to even greater things, to become the CEO of Bremont. Speaking of car crashes, it seems like Rolex CEO Jean-Frédéric Dufour must have been suffering a bout of amnesia from an accident of his own, because where the Black Bay has maintained its distance from the Submariner with a faux cutesy Nana's doily affectation, the most recent update to the flagship Black Bay model is just a Submariner. Like, it's literally just a Submariner. It looks the same, feels the same, wears the same, and does the same tricks. They've neutered it a little with a 200-meter water resistance, but I bet in reality it's just as good. It's got a 70-hour power reserve, is chronometer certified, and an upgrade to the Rolex, it has a silicon balance spring too. Currently available in red with gilt or black with silver, about the only real difference is the aluminium bezel over the Submariner's ceramic. It has a great bracelet with adjustable T-fit clasp, including the choice of the Jubilee Not Jubilee 5-link bracelet, and ditches virtually every Tudor affectation that used to exist to differentiate it from Rolex, with the Rolex version. The bezel edge is more serrated, the crown's got bigger teeth, and they've reprofiled the hands all to look more like a Rolex. On top of that, they've reduced the amount of dial text, which, combined with everything else, might just make the Black Bay better than the Submariner. Improving on improvement isn't easy, but I'm here to give it a go with Delug's 21mm navy blue rubber cut-to-size strap, tropic style straight cut. You can also get your rubber fitted if you don't want gaps, and either way it'll bring back summer all year round. Dressing it up a bit is a dark grey Alcantara signature, which is exactly like wearing a Porsche interior on your wrist. A GT3 RS might be off the cards, but on the cuff is soft, supple Alcantara, which is not only much comfier, but also a lot harder to crash. But for the cigar smoking types is a dark brown Pueblo Slim, coffee-coloured slice of satisfaction wrapped around the wrist. It's like getting a massage from a Cuban cigar, and with the red bezel especially, pops like the cork on the Diplomatico Ambassador rum you can now afford by not buying the Submariner instead. Check out the description below for links to all these straps and more on the Delug's website. So the most challenging thing about the Tudor Black Bay is, like the Submariner at the other end of the scale, the cost. When Rolex makes virtually the same product at half the price, starting at £3,630, a little bit less when you buy it pre-owned, it becomes a game of mental chess trying to justify the other. And that really leads us right back to the original conundrum. Pick the dearest, the one with the most unique design, or the bargain of the bunch. The Tudor is the clear winner, although the Rolex is the Rolex. And the Seamaster looks especially cool with those lugs. Oh well. All I can say is thanks again to Subdial for the watch selection. Check out these and many more incredible watches and see what they'll pay for yours at subdial.com. And remember, if you're fighting to decide between any of these 3 watches, you can always buy all of them and alternate every other day. That's the true consumer advice you signed up for, isn't it? See you next time.